Hey everybody, it's Dwayne from GitKraken. I'm here to tell you a few helpful tips to make the most out of GitLens, the #1 Git extension for VS Code. GitLens is extremely customizable. This is true of a lot of extensions for VS Code and for VS Code itself. However, you have full fine-grained control over all the features in GitLens to make it fit for your workflow. When you first install GitLens and open it up for the first time, it shows you a welcome to GitLens screen. And this does expose some of the customizations. However, if you go over to the home screen inside of the GitLens Sidebar view, there's a Get Started section, and quick setup is what we're looking at here, but there's an interactive settings editor, and if we open that up, this gives you full fine-grained control over all of the aspects of GitLens. You can turn features on or off in total, or you can customize how they work, making them fit the way you want them to work. One of the most powerful features of GitLens that people love is the ability to quickly see blame annotations. Those show up in a couple different places. Let's take a look. With GitLens installed, whatever file you're looking at in VS Code will expose who wrote that line at the end of every line. Here we can see Diane wrote this 3 years ago and Jonathan wrote this one. Now that might be a little hard to read, but go ahead and just hover over it and it exposes all that same information, much easier to read format, and clickable links to the commit itself, to the PR, to what team it's associated with, all sorts of things you can click on. That same information is also exposed down here in the status bar for VS Code. And again, hovering over it will expose that same information, and you can do things like click to show commit. GitLens provides you 3 different views to help you with your work. File blame view, file heatmap view, and file changes view. Let's take a look at those. Here I am in a file. In the upper right-hand corner, I have the GitLens icon, and I can toggle my file blame view on, and this will show me line by line the blame for that particular line. So if I want to see the history of the file really quickly, I can simply open this view. Next, we have the file heatmap view. Turning this view on will expose a heat map in the left-hand gutter and on the right-hand sidebar. You can see in blue, those are the older changes, and red are the more recent changes. Here you see I've changed this a few months ago, and this one was changed a couple years ago, and the deep blue changed even longer ago than that. The final view is the file changes view. This will very quickly show what parts of the file were changed over time. GitLens lets you very quickly see revisions of your work, and you can march back in time one change at a time, or with an Alt click or an Option click on Mac, you can quickly jump back to any version of your documents. If I wanted to go back one revision, I could simply come up here and hit the Open Changes with Previous Revision and jump back to one version back, and I can keep marching back in time doing that as often as I want. However, if I want to see something, from a long time back, I can hit my Option, click, and it will open up this menu, Open Changes with Revision, and I can pick whatever version I want to see. GitLens lets you reorder your sidebar view. So for instance, let's say you work with stashes more often than anything else. You can move that down to the very bottom for quick finding or to the top for quick finding, or you can move it over to the version control panel and have it sit there if you want, or you can even move it out to the sidebar to be its own standalone thing. GitLens has a lot of built-in keyboard shortcuts and the ability to define your own based on how you like to work. There are multiple ways to discover the keyboard shortcuts. If you open up the interactive settings editor or do a Command-Shift-P to open up the GitLens menu and type GitLens open settings, it brings you to the same place. The settings menu on the right-hand side has this jump to section. Go down to keyboard shortcuts, or simply scroll down to it, and you can see this little menu here that gives you the ability to base your shortcuts off of Alt-based, chorded, or user-defined. And as it suggests here, if we go to the keyboard section and look up GitLens, there are a lot of things we can add key bindings to and make it really work the way you want to and hotkey anything you want. So GitLens lets you quickly search and compare between revisions to see what's been going on. You can actually persist all of those searches. So if it's something you're often going to come back to for the next little bit of your work, you can persist those searches. And then even if you restart VS Code, they're still there. Let me show you what I mean. So here in VS Code in the GitLens sidebar, if I wanted to compare, let's say, production to where I'm currently at with head, to see how far I am behind production, or I'm ahead of production, I can quickly see these things. And if I know I'm going to need to compare this quite often in my work, I can hover over the comparison and click the little pin icon, and now this is going to be pinned there. And no matter what I do, if I start and stop VS Code, restart my machine, it should still persist there and be waiting on me when I get back. So GitLens has, of course, commands you can access through the command palette, but it also provides an entire Git command palette. Let me show you how that works. Bring up the command palette, it's Command-Shift-P, and I can start typing GitLens, and I can see a whole slew of options and commands that GitLens lets me do. If I keep typing though, and GitLens : and I type git, and any command I want, commit here or branch, it will guide me through how to create, delete, rename, or do any of the actions associated with that command. So it's a really handy tool to walk you through how to use common Git commands. GitLens makes the integrated terminal in VS Code an interactive terminal. So here in VS Code, if I open up my terminal with command backtick, and I run something like a git log one line, it will spit out my Git history. And normally I'd have to copy paste any of the hashes to interact with it. However, if I command click on any of these, it will open up a menu and let me do all sorts of actions against that particular commit. For those folks that are working against issue queues, if you reference the issue number in your commit message, GitLens can pick that up and auto link to that issue. So here in VS Code, if I do a search and compare between, well, let's say the 11.7 release and where I'm at now with head, you can see, well, that release was pretty far behind where we are now, but also I have this auto-linked issue and pull request section. And we can see all of the issues that were addressed between the 11.7 release and where we're currently at with head. GitLens Plus users have access to visual file histories. This is a way to see quickly how a file has evolved over time, seeing who made what changes when, and the magnitude of those changes from one view. So in VS Code, I'm going to go ahead and open the terminal panel. And then there's a GitLens section. It might just say GitLens when you first see it, but it's the GitLens file history. And it shows who all has worked on this project, when they committed over this particular time frame, and the scope of their changes that they made. We can go back in time pretty far. We can go back all 4 years of this and see everyone that's contributed to this code base. And if we zoom in, let's make it a little more readable, back to 3 months. The scope of these changes is the size of this little shadow. And we can click on any of those to open up a menu to give us full access to perform a whole bevy of actions against that commit. Those were our tips. I hope that helps you get started with GitLens and make the most out of your VS Code experience.